There we are live now.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for December 1st, 2020, 2 p.m. session. No public testimony during this review session. We are going to recall a case that was on yesterday, seeking adjournment. It is calendar number 2018-102A, 241 Grand Street.
Brooklyn.
Sorry.
Yeah. So the reason we're calling this back is we overlooked the fact, and what we had already discussed at staff level, was that they were requesting the fourth adjournment. And the last time we heard this case was actually a little over a year ago. So actually a year and more than a little over a year and 2 months ago. And so they didn't. Their request was just waiting. They were waiting a response from Dob on I guess a ZRD1 or a CD1, and so we can't really have this be on the calendar like this indefinitely. So we're going to be sending out a dismissal warning, and I'd like to close this and schedule it for decision for the next hearing, so that and a dismissal warning can go out, and if someone actually wants to appear, then we can reopen. But there's just sort of no sense in this dragging this on. They can always reapply when they're ready.
So at the hearing, when we do the hearing, do I call it again? No? In case Richard or them want to speak?
We're just going to close it now.
Okay.
And schedule it for decision on December 14th.
Okay.
And, it's just been going on for over a year of waiting and waiting and waiting. So they're welcome to reapply. But I think it's too long. That is our council okay with this?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like then to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
So then we'll schedule this for decision on December 14th, and the reasoning would be failure to prosecute, but welcome to reapply when they're ready. Okay.
Okay. New cases, item number 32, 2019-162BZ, 3336, 3338, Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, just give me a second.
Yeah, please be reminded, this is a review session.
Okay.
No public testimony yet.
All right, so this is a new case, and we have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community Board recommends approval with 3 abstentions. We have 3 letters in support. As a threshold matter, the existing building has non-complying front and rear yards. In order to rely on them for both retention of perimeter wall height and to retain the front yard non-compliance, proof must be provided that they were built pursuant to DOB approvals. I'd be surprised if they can do that with the rear yard, especially. The Sanborn maps don't appear to support the rear yard existing non-complying condition. This is another case of the new so-called addition consuming the existing house, and 0 of the floor joists being retained in place. And the cellar is being excavated by actually about 18 feet to the lot lines, eliminating the possibility of any landscaping above. And the existing foundations are, as a result, proposed to be removed, essentially undermining the existing walls. So how in the world can you have existing material where there's nothing to hold it up? In fact, the cellar drawing basically shows nothing holding up the walls above. This is a demolition, therefore, not an addition to an existing house. Hence, so far doesn't pass the threshold for a 73-622. I'm also, with respect to the design, not understanding the 17-foot ceiling heights on the second floor for the many bedrooms. So the rooms are small with very high ceiling heights. And that proportion is completely strange when you have a kind of a regular size bedroom with 17-foot high ceilings. Basically, the extra height of approximately 7 feet appears to be intended to contain the swimming pool at the roof. Although there is no way that roof thickness will support the weight of a swimming pool. They're just showing a standard thickness joist to support however much water weighs. So it's just not a believable project. They also need to provide a longitudinal section, which would therefore cut right through the swimming pool, and we would see better the relationships. No reason was demonstrated for the building being taller than the existing building, which is already tall. They also need to show compliance with rear and side yard setbacks above the 30 feet height as required under section 23-632B. The so-called bulkhead at the attic level is an unpermitted obstruction in the setback. You need to look up what the permitted obstructions are. For the rear yard study, in order for it to support a 25-foot depth at the second floor, on the study, the heights of the rear yard incursions at adjoining properties. The photos appear to show that only the first floors impede on the 30-foot rear yards. And other than the one house to the immediate rear, all adjoining properties have complying or close to complying rear yards, even at the first floor. So I don't know what the argument is for the imposition on the second floor. With one exception on the tax block and none at all on the social block, no houses exceed 0.79 FAR or 50% lot coverage. And this application is requesting much more than that. They also need to show the building in context with the neighborhood. Because basically, the application doesn't meet the thresholds of consideration, but also it's a very incomplete presentation of the project. Those are my comments. Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. I had a lot of problem with this project just in terms of trying to understand what is being built here. I agree with you with regards to building to the lot line, the cellar to the lot line. I do have significant concern with the height of the cellar that is proposed. I think the depth of the cellar is going to be 22 feet, which, has been shown needed for a basketball court. I mean, I looked through the websites and even a 16-foot high minimum, 16-foot high ceiling would be adequate for an indoor basketball kind of system. And also this 22-foot high cellar would not only be used to house a basketball, but also your laundry room, storeroom, studio spaces. So I am wary of the fact that we would have such a generous 22-foot high cellar space, which could be, we don't know what the end use of it would be. And also, if you notice, the location of the 22-foot depth extends beyond the house, and then there is like a pit that is open to the grade. And regardless of what depth it is, whether it's 22 or 16 or 12, if it's below grade, the applicant must provide all the necessary protection along the lot line abutting the building next to it to the north, so that if anybody falls, you cannot assume the old format. So we need a much more detail of the edge condition, lot line condition, because typically many of them have the shared driveway, or the driveways almost bleed from one to the other. Here, the driveway would abruptly end to the edge of a precipitous drop to a 22-foot deep cellar with no wall, no protection. I know I'm getting into details, but I think this is just getting into the fact that I'm concerned about what is being proposed, the actual final use of this building, and the extent of the excavation and retention of the existing building. And the perimeter wall height that is being shown on the diagram is incorrect compared to what is existing. And I agree with you with the rear yard. I think given the surrounding uses, there isn't that much of rear yard encroachment. This is one of the few remaining blocks that does not have that much of rear yard encroachment, or if it is, it's not as significant as some of the other sites that we see. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Otley Brown?
I agree with both of you that the rear yard study has to actually show the extent of the rear yard incursion on each floor in order to prove that they have a right to what they're requesting. And as for the proof that they're giving that the existing 22-foot rear yard is legal, they gave us those Sanborn maps, and I didn't catch what you said, but it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look as if those Sanborn maps are proving that the yard is 22 feet.
Right.
It looks like it's just a standard yard. And if you look further down each Sanborn map, like a few houses down, there are homes that actually extend into the space that is rear yard far more than this home and the home next door to it, which leads me to question whether or not that's actually proof that this is a 22-foot rear yard.
Mm-hmm.
So other than them actually measuring the Sanborn with a Sanborn map ruler that you can get, I don't know how that could be proof of anything, except that Sanborn has that the yard hasn't changed at all since the last year they gave it to us, which I think is 2007.
Mm-hmm. Right. Agreed. I said without as much detail, the same.
Okay. All right. Good.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Shetar.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with all what has been said. I got like really difficulty understanding the project. I'm not sure how they're gonna be able to excavate the entire cellar footprint to the target cellar floor, the proposed one, without even impacting the neighboring buildings. I would say, I wouldn't say without like preserving the existing structure, without the impacting the adjacent buildings for the neighborhood. So I believe this is kind of like very aggressive excavation to go with that kind of like area where houses are like close to each other. And knowing that, there is it's not going to be possible to install like really robust excavation support system. I don't think I believe what they are planning to do is just underpinning, and I'm not sure how they can underpin with that kind of like excavation that's proposed. Other than that, I agree with all the comments that mentioned, and I don't want to repeat them. Thank you.
And Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that's been said. I was surprised to see such an aggressive application, especially from this attorney, from this counsel. I'm assuming that this may be a moment that he speaks to his client so they can talk about something a bit more realistic and more appropriate for the surrounding community, because this is very aggressive and way outside of the line of what we've been approving with these type of permits.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. And the other thing that I wanted to point out, and I didn't look for it, there's a TPPN from DOB where they talk about the maximum size of cellars. This cellar is basically the entire lot, and I'm sure it exceeds whatever that TPPN says in the first place. And in the second place, I know that kind of a little bit back in history on these applications, when we saw some kind of excavation like this, we made them, or I think this was the PSA, could have been landmarks. We made them not excavate as deeply into the rear so that they would have the opportunity for vegetation. This way, there's no opportunity. This is just, if they have plants at all, it's in planter pots. There's just nothing. So that would really destroy the character of those internal yards, which are able to grow trees. So, okay, thanks.
Okay. Next item is item number 33, 2019-279BZ, 4119 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay. Also a new application.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community board recommends denial with 2 opposed. Their resolution is very detailed in expressing concern for the amount of traffic and disturbance to neighbors that would be caused by 7 medical suites, each accommodating 3 patients at a time. That's a minimum because you could have people in the waiting rooms also. And also the request for 5 times the allowable floor area. There are 7 letters in opposition citing traffic and parking concerns and the other doctors' offices in the immediate neighborhood and their effect on this area. I think the land use map is inaccurate, the one that was provided, in indicating commercial uses within the 400-foot radius. Those uses are actually ambulatory diagnostic use group 4, according to their certificates of occupancy, at the corner of Park Road and between Koch and Sycamore. So that the land use map should be corrected. In fact, this is a very residential portion of Richmond Avenue, and within 2 blocks of the site, there are 4 use group 4 ambulatory care locations in very residential buildings, so scale-wise very residential, that are a maximum of 2 stories tall, with parking at the rear on Ridgecrest at 2 locations and at the front on Richmond in 1 location. So without more on the amount of floor area at those locations, I'm not sure how to justify this very large increase over the allowable at this location. The other through lot locations only have curb cuts at Ridgecrest or Park Road. None have a curb cut right on Richmond, and it's not clear which is a greater disturbance to neighbors, access only from Richmond or only from Ridgecrest. In any event, the buffering between adjacent residential neighbors that's shown has to be much greater than the 2 feet that are proposed, which of course wouldn't support anything other than like petunias. Increasing the buffering alone would increase planting areas and reduce lot coverage and floor area. And it's not acceptable to have the parking at the cellar level open and right up against the residential property lines. With the planting shown, with the planting shown, it's actually located in a cellar pit. So it's kind of odd to me because the architect or whoever drew the plans seem not to have been aware of their own site section. The plants are located in a pit. So that is an open space with landscaping if it's the pit of the parking area. And if I've got this right, because the drawings were not very good quality, the proposal is to excavate the rear yard to gain access to so-called cellar parking. So the building appears to be 3 stories, not 2, and the cellar no longer a cellar because they've excavated the whole rear yard. So the parking is at grade as to the cellar, or say the parking garage is at grade as to the rear yard. And again, changing entirely the open space, because open space is supposed to be at grade. It's not supposed to be down lower. So I think this is all too much for this narrow site, and the building looks extremely institutional and frankly pretty ugly. Not to forget that this project is adjacent to detached 1 families on 3 sides and semi-detached 2 families on the 4th side. This project is extremely disrespectful of its impact on the neighbors. In short, I would say back to the drawing board for something responsive to the findings and neighborhood that is significantly smaller with fewer parking spaces, fewer exam rooms, and more real landscaped open space. The next submission, if there is one, because maybe the pushback would be great, must show renderings from both Ridgecrest and Richmond.
Somebody shut off their background noise.
Yeah, maybe that's Carlo. I'm muting you, Carlo. That was Carl. Okay. Then, so the next submission, if there is one, must show renderings from both Ridgecrest and Richmond and provide a parking and traffic study. Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay, thank you. So here are my additional comments. In the proposed site plan sheet, it should include the street intersection of Richmond and Koch Boulevard and location of pedestrian crossing, curbside parking, bus stop, utilities, infrastructure, etc., abutting the curb cuts and abutting curb cuts. And this is to better understand the location of the curb cut, exit entryways, and how it relates to the surrounding intersection and flow of traffic. The applicant needs to provide the hours of operations, trip generations from the proposed use, need to provide a very detailed landscaping material, landscape planting. The landscaping, I agree with you, the landscaping along the lot line needs to be beefed up. It is too thin, it needs to be much more dense. And the fencing type also has to be a lot more detailed and needs to be more residential in character. And those details have not been provided. Also, will there be any lighting in the parking area, that is the above grade parking? With regards to the findings, more than the required front yard, side yard, and rear yard, I mean, I think with regards to the finding, while they may meet the requirements and look satisfactory, I agree with you that it still appears more institutional and needs to be broken up to give it a more of a residential appearance. The other question I had was the Ridgecrest Avenue. Though it seems it's a mapped, but it's not built street, and that and I think of the two streets, Ridgecrest versus Ridgecrest versus Richmond, Richmond is probably more of the roadway access point for the site. However, we need to understand what the Ridgecrest frontage is and how that is being treated, which should be more buffering, and it should appear residential, and parking should not at all be visible. And if they are going to provide parking in the rear, I think they should look at material that is more porous material and not an asphalt type thing. Should provide more street trees along Richmond and Ridgecrest. I'm concerned about how the parking area would be visible and would affect the residences abutting it, especially on lot 39, 264, and 36 and 38. And also, because this is a through lot and way the building is sitting, I want to make sure that the building will have minimal effect on the rear yards of these abutting buildings.
Okay. What were the addresses of the adjacent properties?
Sorry, yeah, hold on, just give me a second. Lot 264, 39, 38, and 35.
8, 39, and 35. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown?
So the major finding here is that whatever they build should be keeping in the character of the residential neighborhood within which it's located. And based on their own metrics that they identify for us, which is lot coverage, open area, percentage of lot area devoted to parking, and percentage of planted areas, what they're proposing does not meet the average or the median that they've cited. So for instance, lot coverage, they're saying the average lot coverage in the 400-foot radius is 25%, yet their lot coverage is 31%. The amount of open area is an average of 74% of the lot. They're providing only 69% of the lot. The percentage of planted area averages 37%. They're only providing 18%. So to me, there's way too much asphalt on this lot, and that's being driven by the enormous size of the building, which is driving the parking requirement. So if the building were smaller, there would be less required parking, which means there would be less asphalt, which means there would be more open space that could be devoted to landscaping, and the building would better fit the character of the neighborhood in terms of its bulk.
Correct.
So that is my major comment there. And then they need to also give us, if they get that far, more details as to the operation. What types of doctors? Are they very patient-intensive doctors? What are the hours of operation? And how many patients will be arriving by car, by, taxi, the whole traffic and parking study and everything that goes with that analysis.
Very
And that's all.
concisely put, hit all the points of the findings. Thank you. Commissioner Shetto.
Thank you, Chair. I believe the ask in this application is very aggressive. I believe the size of the building, like Commissioner Utley Brown mentioned, is driving the ask. That kind of like enlargement, the size of the building requested is probably like more than 4 times what's the limitation. That I have a very specific question to them. What is the gain to the neighborhood? It's very important to keep the building merging with the character of the neighborhood, but probably it's as important as that to make sure that the neighborhood that's gonna permit or give a special permit to that kind of use with this kind of enlargement is gonna receive benefit from the building. And so far, I'm not sure what kind of benefit that neighborhood is gonna gain from kind of application. Parking wise, I haven't seen any like even back of envelope calculations on the parking. I've done one. They are talking about 7 offices, 4 in the first, 3 on the second. If you add up the numbers and the rates that they mentioned, just if you consider 1 patient being served and 2 waiting, plus the staff, we would need something on the order of 42 trips. It's going to be generating like 42 trips. If you consider 50-50 split, 50% is driving and 50% is going with transportation like Uber or whatever else, that would require more than 20 spots for parking. That's just back of envelope calculation. So I'm not sure when they run a parking study, what kind of situation they're going to encounter. So I'm asking them to answer these 3 questions. What kind of benefit to the neighborhood based on what they are providing only 19 parking spaces? And what is the anticipated impact on the immediately adjacent neighbors from the proposed parking? I'm talking about lighting plus noise as well. Remember, this is not a kind of like a traditional driveway where somebody's gonna come with the car and park it and leave. It's gonna be in and out the entire day. So this is gonna be generating some considerable noise, and I'm not sure they haven't mentioned anything on mitigating the impact on the adjacent neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to point out that the way these medical suites work is the doctor has an office. There's 1 patient who the doctor will be seeing in 1 exam room and 2 other exam rooms occupied by patients that the nurses are tending to, waiting for the doctor to come in. Therefore, possibly 2 patients or maybe even 3 in the waiting room so that you can do really constant turnaround. So maybe not during these particular times, but during normal times, there could easily be 3 people in the waiting room. So thank you for that. Commissioner Shabetto.
Thank you, Chair. So the board has already spoke about 7303A and that type of balancing test, but 7326, I don't think they made any attempt to try to address A, B, or C of 7326. They didn't even mention how it would affect the any distribution of bulk on the zoning that will unduly obstruct access of light and air to adjoining properties. And it looks like by their right side of the proposal, seems like that is going to block a lot. But again, they didn't discuss any of it. I don't think this was ready for to be submitted to us. I don't think that I don't think it's an appropriate ask for the community. I'm very familiar with this area. My children's doctor, the pediatrician, is maybe down the block, block or so down. This is a, you know, to simply say in your statement of facts that, oh well, you know, this street can handle such a use is not really a parking study. It's not a traffic study. It's just a empty statement that I don't believe is supported by the actual facts of that area. 7 medical suites. We don't know the type of doctors. We don't know the number of patients that they see. We have no idea of what kind of in and out we're looking at here. And they really provide no basis for something that is 5 times the size of what would be allowed here. Other than that, I have no other comments.
That's a lot. Okay, thank you. And Vice Chair Shanda had her hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had a secret related question, and that is why in the future with no action, why future with no action was analyzed as vacant and not as a residential development?
Oh, because this isn't a variance. So future with no action, that's an interesting question. On variances, we always have them be vacant because the theory being you wouldn't build anything absent waiver, right? In this case, you could build a 1,500 square foot doctor's office plus whatever the remaining is for residential as right. So that's a good point. So maybe Tracy and council can take a look at that, and maybe you did already. You don't have to do it right now, but just to put a note in your.
I'll take a look.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Move on.
Yeah, anything else from anybody? No, okay. So I see somebody in the waiting room with their hand up. This is a review session where just the commissioners speak about a project. When we're finished with all of the projects, then we go to the public hearing and you'll be permitted to speak on this application, okay?
Okay, item number 34, 2020-14 BZ, 34-10 12th Street, Queens.
1 second, okay. Okay, also a new case. We have proof of service of the initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board recommends approval with 2 recusals. We have 1 letter in support and 1 in opposition that has to do with a neighbor dispute about the repair of the wall, I think. While this board does not get involved in private matters, kind of neighbor to neighbor matters, it does expect the property owner to maintain its property to a high standard in order to justify any waivers from this agency. So we will ask the applicant about the conditions of the adjacent property to the extent that this project has affected it. It appears from ACRIS that prior to 2015, both lots 29 and 30 were held in common ownership. In 2015, lot 29 was sold to an LLC corporation with address at 34-10 12th Street, which we are told is the subject bagel company site. In July 2020, lot 30 was sold to an LLC corporation with initial address at the same 34-10 12th Street, which is the address of the subject application. Whether or not they have been treated as a single zoning lot, if the owner of the subject was and now is the owner of the adjacent lot, the two lots are held in common ownership, and the need for the variance based on the irregularity of the lot may be rendered inapplicable. So the applicant would need to establish a unique physical condition that drives a hardship in the face of the property owner or its predecessor entitled, but in this case, it's the property owner owning both lots. And you can't hide behind an LLC when it's the same entity. In addition, I'm a bit confused by the position taken by the applicant that the special permit granted by this board in 2013, pursuant to which an enlargement was made on the subject site that did not comply either with the approved plans or the very findings of the special permit, somehow entitles the site to further relief, both to cure that illegal non-complying enlargement and to provide additional area. First of all, my understanding is that the building was leased to the current owners until 2015 when they purchased it, and that the application and enlargements of the special made pursuant to, let's say, conceptually pursuant to the 2013 special permit were for their benefit. So the applicant, and not a predecessor in title, is responsible for these violations, and for whatever reason elected not to take full advantage of the granted floor area increase because they said that the way it's constructed, they didn't take full advantage. So does the site otherwise comply, for instance, with the M District performance standards and the other commitments made by the applicant? So some of this is actually a compliance hearing with respect to the 2013 special permit. It's completely, it seems to be largely, if not completely, out of compliance with the grant. So though I am sympathetic to the needs of any small business operator, especially these days, I am not at all sympathetic to this request, absent more, from what can only be described as a scofflaw with respect to this board and the scope of its prior relief. And since the subject owner is also likely the owner of the building on lot 30 and certainly is its long-term tenant, and the 7353 special permit applies to buildings and not zoning lots that have not previously expanded, I query why the request to enlarge was not done as to that building under a special permit application, and recommend probably that it do that instead, because I'm not happy at all about how they're behaving, and I think it's quite arrogant. Okay, Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. So way I understand this case is that in 1964, Lot 29 had a non-conforming use. 1992, New York Bagel leased the building on Lot 30 and leased it from 1992 to 2020. Sorry, Lot 30. I meant Lot 30. 1996, New York Bagel began renting the building on Lot 29 for a non-conforming use. And in 2012, the former owner of Lot 29, which is Georgetown Realty, had applied for the special permit under 7353 to add additional floor for accessory office use. And it was approved, however, it was never built. And what was built was definitely not pursuant to what was granted. 2015, the applicant...
So slow down. The special permit was granted, but something was built. It just didn't comply.
That's what I said. That's what I said. It was granted.
You said it was never built. Something was built. It just didn't comply with our grant.
Yes, it was built not pursuant to what was approved. I agree. In 2015, the applicant purchased the lot 29, and in 2013 added about this 1,986 square feet of floor area to create the partial second floor. That's the one that where in 2012 BSA had approved a development of a 2-story building with an 8-foot rear yard setback of total 6,707 square feet. And in 2013, the applicant added an additional partial second floor of a total of 1,986 square feet. So I really did not have any concerns with regards to the ownership. I accepted the fact that in one place they're renting it and the other place they're fully on the subject lot, they have complete ownership, and the variances before us is for the lot that the applicant owns and is trying to rectify the mistake or the illegal construction that was made, and provide the necessary justification as to why the construction that was built, why it could not be built pursuant to what was approved. And in terms of the programmatic justification and the space and the utilization of both the spaces. And I think the applicant also went as far as like, they couldn't have built anything on top of the lot 30, partly because there are all the manufacturing is happening on the lot 30. So couldn't extend onto the second floor with much or whatever it was, it had to be minimal without causing much disruption to the first floor. So I actually accepted the uniqueness argument. It meets the uniqueness argument, the regularity of the site, and the need for the flow of activity from these two buildings, and specifically I think the applicant stated that there were recent changes that were made for which they had to make these very quick haphazard improvements, and that had to do with the new regulatory guidelines with regards to food production. And in order to meet those requirements, they had to segregate certain areas, and that resulted in having to provide this 1,900 square foot building on top, and the placement of those were relevant in the way they were to meet those new requirements. So I accepted those arguments. To me, that is reasonable. In terms of the the financial, I look to hear from what Commissioner Otley Brown has to say. With regards to the neighborhood character, this really is even though it's zoned residential, it has more manufacturing uses than residential uses. And this is the only site that has a mix of manufacturing and residential and parking spaces abutting it. I think the ask is minimal and reasonable for a business of this nature to operate here. So I had no additional comments or questions. I was satisfied with it.
Okay. Commissioner Otley Brown?
So I think I tend to look at this in the way that the chair looks at this, in that you've got a couple of unexplained ownership issues. Either this is in a zoning lot with the other lot that has the bakery portion and should be analyzed as such because it's in common ownership in common zoning lot, or it should be analyzed in conjunction with the adjoining lot as if we usually analyze these lots for uniqueness in terms of this is being used in conjunction with the adjacent lot, because that makes it in a more, puts it in a more advantageous position than other triangular or small lots that cannot be operated in conjunction with its adjacent lot. So until the analysis is redone to take into account the fact that that adjacent lot is being operated as part of the same business and it's a thriving business, I don't know that we can get past step A, uniqueness, and go to the other findings. So that to me is the biggest problem there. I also agree with the chair that it is kind of a very bold request that you not only want to legalize something that you didn't build according to approved plans, but then you also want to further enlarge by more than the total amount that you've already illegally enlarged. That also is problematic. And like the chair said, this could be turned into a compliance hearing right now, and we could revoke the special permit and they would be 100% illegal, and then we could farm this out to DOB for violations. So that's why I'm really shocked that they would be so bold as to just keep on asking and asking, even though they do say they want to cure their part legalization. I think that's the major issue with this case. I feel like if that's settled, once we've settled on that, the actual financials are not in bad shape. There's only one question I have, and that has to do with claiming soft costs for the as of right when there is no hard cost. And so for that, I would want them to justify that, because I personally think that if you're analyzing the as of right as it is a non-conforming use, which was already built and occupied and thriving, then why do you need any soft costs in terms of your filing, your legal, your loan interest, and your leasing interest and all of that? It's not necessary. However, I do notice that the delta between the development cost and the market value is too wide to be closed by simply correcting that. So that's why I think your biggest issue here is A.
Thank you. Delta between development costs and market value, you said, is too close. You're still muted.
Too wide.
Too wide.
It's too wide to be closed by just deducting all of the soft costs. So to me, it's more of an academic conversation to have with the financial analyst, because let's say they subtracted all of the soft costs out and had nothing but the building sale. It still is not going to break their argument that the as of right, as the legal built before the special permit, is not viable.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much. Okay. Commissioner Shaita.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to start with technicalities here. I'm going to start with common sense. This is the kind of case that I don't like to look at. By like the way we're going to look at this case is going to send a message to the applicant community, whether when we grant something, whether they respect it and go abide by it, or they just take it and throw it away and build whatever. So just want to make this crystal clear. I believe this is an ask in addition to a previous ask. I believe this is unreasonable ask. I believe even this is an illegal ask. I'm going to explain myself in a moment as why I don't believe we can grant a variance on this project. Again, it's not crystal clear in the zoning resolution, but you could read it. It's between the lines over there. But this applicant or this site obtained a special permit from the board back in the day, and they didn't like that. The special permit was very generous, in my opinion. But in the meantime, it did try to save the day for the adjacent property, like the setback. What happened is the applicant or whoever took the grant, put it aside, and built immediately on the property line. And they are coming back to this. Oh, we didn't build the entire footprint that we got in the special permit. So you see, we're generous and we're asking for a variance because our site is irregular shape. And what else? Oh, the building that we use in addition to our site is kind of an oddly designed. We cannot like gain access to that building, but through the triangular shaped lot. If the uniqueness is the accessibility of the adjacent lot owned by the applicant, I believe this is a self-created hardship. It's not the rectangular shaped lot did obtain a special permit back in the day, and I believe that special permit was very generous. Again, want to make this clear.
Rectangular,
Now, can we,
sorry, the triangular lot got the special permit.
Yeah.
Right, okay, just,
no, the special first of all, the triangular lot claiming uniqueness on the basis of a triangular lot for a size like this, for a site like this, for a commercial, for a warehouse, doesn't make sense. You can claim hardship from a triangular lot if you're building residential, like small rooms where you cannot accommodate the narrowness near the apex of the site. But if you're building an open space, I don't think this is a big deal. If it's a warehouse, I don't think the rectangularity, the triangularity here impose like real hardship. But part of the hardship or the uniqueness that's mentioned in this case is the triangular issue, and the other part is the accessibility for the adjacent building. And what I'm saying is the triangular issue is not contributing, is not imposing that much difficulty if somebody want to design a warehouse on a lot like this, and the accessibility of the adjacent building is a design issue. It could be considered as a self-created hardship. And let me talk about that other point that I believe it's important. The zoning resolution in under 73-53, item number 3, it says, talking about the enlargement of commercial use on a lot like the one using a special permit, like the one they obtained. It says the building in which such use is located has not, this is one of the conditions, this is one of the findings. The building in which such use is located has not previously been enlarged pursuant to section 11-412, 43-121, or 72-21. That means that you cannot, by the zoning resolution, you cannot double dip. You cannot ask for a special permit while you obtained a variance before. And if I use the same logic, I would say, okay, so since you obtained the special permit, you cannot obtain a variance. That simple. I believe this is what's in between the lines in under section 73-53, item number 3, A3, item A-3. So I believe it's clear. We cannot grant this kind of variance if we want to like follow the spirit of 73-53. And apart from this, that the elimination of the setback, I would, if it's up to me, I would bring them to a compliance hearing and see why they elected to like forbid the adjacent properties from their rights. These guys are manufacturing use in a residential zoning district. It's not the opposite. And by building like to the property line, they took something away from the neighbors. The neighbor has the right for whoever is going to build next to them to have the proper setback per the zoning resolution. They didn't do that. So I believe in what they did before and in their ask, they are very aggressive, and I wouldn't support that application.
okay, thank you. Okay, and Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. So a lot has been said here. I don't want to be repetitive. I think that one way or another, the adjoining lot needs to be considered, whether it's because there's common ownership or because they are admittedly using this adjoining lot in conjunction with their lot, as they admitted in their papers that they have several openings between these two lots and they go in and out of each other. So I think we need to consider this other lot. There is a real question of self-created issues here, self-created issue here. What I just stated earlier, as this may be adjoining lot, and also how they illegally built disregarding the parameters of special permit. These are two issues that they've self-created and now are seeking relief from. I think that's going to be a hurdle for them. Do I think that we should bring this to a compliance hearing? For this case, I don't think that's appropriate yet. They came here trying to resolve the issues of the past. It's not like DOB rang their doorbell and started violating. They came to us to try to correct this issue.
They may have gotten a when they needed to refinance that. So, but anyway.
I don't know that. If that's the case, that would make me feel differently. And I'm not ready to be done with this case. I think that they may have an ability to show a uniqueness, and if they use both lots, but I think they need to create a very different argument, and that's what I'm stuck with right now, is whether or not this is unique. I think they have to try to analyze this by using both lots and bring that to us.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you, everybody. Very helpful. Actually, while we're working, maybe someone could check DOB to see whether a violation was issued for this. Somebody like, who's our project manager? That's Jella, if you have a chance.
Sure, I'll take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, this concludes the.
Ted had his hand up. Go ahead, Ted.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Chair. I was just going to say I had checked to see if they had any violations. They don't have anything currently. They do have a stop work order that exists currently on the property. So I don't think there's any current violations other than that. So that's from like 2017, I believe, the stop work order. So that was it.
Oh, does it say what it was for? Why?
Stand by. I'm sorry. Just off the BIS website, Borough Commissioner issued a stop work order due to revocation of approvals and permits. That was in May of 2017.
Because I seem to remember, and if you look at complaints or the 2017 applications, I think I saw a notation that says that the drawings didn't comply with BSA approved drawings.
With that, I did not see. Let me see.
Yeah, they I'm confirming what Ted is saying, that there, it appears correct what Ted is saying regarding the stop work order, and their active violation for construction also references the same stop work order due to revocation of approvals and permits.
But why were they revoked? That's a
Well, it says failure due to revocation of approvals and permits. Not sure if it has to do with BSA, but I'll keep.
so keep digging, and if you find while we're in this hearing, then let us know. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. All right.
This concludes the public review session. We now commence with the public hearing for December 1st, 2020, 2 p.m. session. New cases, item number 32, 2019-162BZ, 3336 to 3338 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
You're the only one. Okay.
You're the only one, Jay? Nobody else?
You'll see in a minute.
Okay.
I heard your comments loud and clear.
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to not respond honestly to board member questions?
I do. Good afternoon, Jay Goldstein for the applicant. Based on the conversations I heard during the review session, I don't think that there is a utility of trying to go through points right now. I think that there's a number of issues that the board raised of threshold matters that I have to analyze with my client and discuss with my client. So therefore, I'd like to respond to the board's questions in writing.
Okay. And in a new project.
In a project that meets your comments. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so let's.
I heard everyone's comments.
Well, more than hearing our comments, you've represented many applicants on this. You know where the board sort of limitations are, and this is so far beyond, as I think Commissioner Shibeta said. So
Yes.
You need to have your client pull back to something that looks like what we've approved in the past with support.
Understood.
For what we've approved. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Understood.
support like that. Okay. So let's open this up to the public.
So this application is 2019-162BZ, 3336-38 Bedford Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, and if there's anyone who would like to speak on this matter, if you're in the Zoom room, please raise your Zoom hand, and there are 2 phone numbers who called in. If you would like to be heard on this matter, please press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. So how much time, Mr. Goldstein?
This is going to take a while, so we can put it out to maybe February or March.
Okay. Okay. So I don't see anyone entering the room, and I don't see any hands up. Is that right?
No, I don't see it.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye.
Next item is, thank you, 33-2019-279BZ, 4119 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island. Is that wrong?
So we do have one person who raised their hand. The person who raised their hand, I don't know if that person is an applicant or someone who would just like to speak. So let's allow that
I
person.
think this is Ron's case, isn't it? Ron
Yeah,
Rosati's
I
case?
don't know. There's a phone number with three zeros at the end. Can the person with 3 zeros please identify themselves?
This is Joan Falkberg. I'm across the street from them.
From which them? Sorry, which location are you talking about?
4119 Richmond Avenue.
Okay, so we'll give you a chance to speak, but right now the applicant is going to make their presentation, and then we'll open it up to the public to speak, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Tony.
What's
Hi,
wrong?
Commissioner. Ron Rosati.
No, I didn't see him. I'm sorry. I know he's there. You raise your hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Please
Or is
proceed.
there anyone else from your team participating?
Frank Martorella, the architect, was trying to call in or Zoom in.
So do you know his phone number? There's someone with last 3 digits, 641 on their phone. If that person is the architect, please raise your Zoom hand by dialing *9.
I don't believe that's him. That's not the last 4 digits of his phone number.
Okay. We also have, say again the name of the person?
Frank Martorella is the architect.
Not so far. We have Deborah Trapanotto and Joseph Schipani. Neither of those people are in your team, right?
No.
Okay.
I could respond though. He'll
right,
try to join. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Madam Chair, Ron Rosati representing the applicant. Heard your comments loud and clear. We'll try to look into a redesign to meet the neighborhood character study findings regarding lot coverage, floor area, and things of that nature, open space. We'll look into that. The building redesign to look less institutional, provide traffic studies, parking demands, increasing buffers, provide hours of operations, more details regarding fencing and lighting, impacts on noise and possibility use of pervious pavement. Regarding the comment to access the site off of Ridgecrest, if you look at the tax map and in the radius map, you can see that Ridgecrest is actually its own lot. We believe it's privately owned, so I'm not sure if we could actually put a curb cut on Ridgecrest. Nonetheless, I think it would have more impact on that residential neighborhood if we did.
I want to jump in. I did not suggest that. I just said that between those 2 streets, it may make more sense for Richmond to be the primary access point, but we need to understand what the street frontage of Ridgecrest is, even though it's a lot. I understand it is being used for access to the cluster of homes that's across on the north side of Ridgecrest. So it needs to be given the due respect of a residential street frontage and treated accordingly.
I'm not understanding that, Commissioner Chandra. Treated in what aspect? I mean, right now we're proposing a large amount of landscaping on that frontage of Ridgecrest.
I think those details have to be provided. That wasn't very clear, and the buffering definitely did not look dense enough for it. So those are our concerns,
And
at least my concerns.
And I just want to add that unless I'm reading the drawings wrong, and I hope the architect is listening somehow, the drawings are very unclear and poorly presented. Unless I'm reading the drawings wrong, the level of the so-called yard at Ridgecrest is way under the level of the sidewalk at Ridgecrest. And you cannot have open space count as open space that's subterranean. It has to be at the same level as the curb. So I'd say that the main direction is do-over. You need to come up with a new project. This one is not an acceptable project, and we don't want to see you reducing it by one exam suite or something like this. This is a major redo. The ask is far in excess of anything the board could consider, and it needs to be justified with findings and also by looking at obviously the impact in the neighborhood. The neighbors are very upset about this because of the current impact of the other medical facilities in the area, which are in very small buildings, which I dare say are not bigger than 1,500 square feet. And if they are bigger, then you need to find out how much bigger. Okay, so.
Understood.
Okay, right. Anything else from commissioners or Mr. Rizzotti before we move to the public? There's 3 people with their hands up. No, 2 people. No? Okay.
No.
So we'll move to the public then. Oops, I just lost it. The woman who called in initially with last 3 digits 000, you can proceed and just state your name again, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So this is Joan Falkenberg. I'm at 4114 Richmond Avenue. There are so many close by areas that are commercial that I don't understand why it has to be in the middle of the residential area. There are so many residential commercial areas that are pretty close by. Why this had to be in the middle of a residential area, I really don't understand. That's really it.
Thank you very much. And then we have Joseph Shipani. Sal, correct me if I got the spelling wrong, the pronunciation wrong. Okay, go ahead. Oh, let's see, talking permitted. To unmute yourself, you have to dial *6.
Madam Chair.
There you go. Yes, go ahead.
We agree with your findings, some things we weren't aware of. And this is a residential, modest homes, 1 and 2 family. And other things to consider, there is a PS 55 grammar school within blocks at the up Koch Boulevard. There is multiple bus routes that accommodate middle school and high school students in this area. This is a busy express bus route as well. There's commuters. They park throughout the area all the time. In addition, there are existing medical and health-related facilities in this area, contributing to more congestion, including foot traffic overall, children going to school morning, afternoon, parents escorting and such, the vehicular traffic, the bus traffic, not to mention we'll have additional roving traffic seeking parking, again, given the considerations of doctor's office visitors, their staff and such, just about accommodate their parking. Plus the fact we had no idea how the building even looked as an institutional, not to mention overall objection to the building modification and an enlargement of such a place. And we thank you for your time and your consideration. And we object, my neighbors in this immediate area, to this the project. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for calling in. And then we have Deborah, sorry, what's the last name? Deborah Tropinato.
Yes, can you hear me? Hi. So I wanted to, I raised my hand when I heard Ridgecrest Avenue mentioned, because I actually do live on Ridgecrest Avenue, a couple of houses away from this empty lot. And I did want to reiterate that Ridgecrest Avenue should not be an access point. It is a narrow one-way street. There is a development where traffic comes in and out of right across from where this lot is. There would be cars entering and exiting into each other essentially if the curb cut was where I anticipate the curb cut would be on Ridgecrest. That said, I still oppose this project, even if the curb cut is on Richmond Avenue and the main access point on Richmond Avenue, just for the simple nature of the employees that work there. They will take up the majority of the proposed parking. And I have 2 doctor's offices across the street from me, and at any given day until 5 or 6 p.m., there is no parking on the streets. If someone were to come to my house, we have to move the cars into the driveway further up so that they have a spot to park. It's very congested. It's a narrow street. It's one of the more narrow streets in the neighborhood. If you did a survey of the blocks to the east of Ridgecrest, you would see that they are much wider, and perhaps they could sustain, could handle that traffic in and out. But Ridgecrest, in fact, that spot right at the crest is the most narrow point of Ridgecrest Avenue. There, right now, where the building would be built was a one-family house. Where one family house once stood are now 2 two-family houses, and now potentially a proposed medical pavilion. It's too much congestion for the neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood, and I vote to keep it as such. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for calling in. And then we have Patrick Tierney.
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. I am at 206 Ridgecrest, which is lot 39, the lot directly attached to this lot that they're going to build on. And Ridgecrest is completely, filled with back parking for other doctor's offices, and there is no more spaces for parking. If this was put here, one, there should never be an entrance in from Ridgecrest. It's a narrow street, and it would just be completely congested. Also, my oldest, I have 3 young kids. One goes to PS 55. We like to walk over there sometimes, and having an entrance on Ridgecrest would be pretty dangerous. And my oldest son is severely autistic, and right now that lot is blocked off by kind of like a mound of dirt. There's not even a sidewalk. Right now it provides like a barrier, like a safety barrier right now. So if we're outside and he's playing around, if he wanders off a little bit, it's okay right now. But if there's an active driveway, that would be a major danger to himself. But yeah, it's just way too congested. Up and down Richmond Avenue, there are smaller sized doctor's offices, and even the small sized doctor's offices has a major overflow in parking on Ridgecrest. And really, this block can't handle anymore. So that's pretty much all I have to say on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then we had one more hand up. No, I don't see. Is there anyone else? Hold on one second. Is there anyone else in the waiting room who would like to speak? And if so, please put your Zoom hand up or dial *9 to raise your hand. We had somebody before, but they dropped out, it looks like. Okay, so getting back to Mr. Rizzotti, thank you everyone for calling in. We do appreciate your testimony. So Mr. Rizzotti, do you have anything to add? And if not, how much time do you need to respond to these issues?
I believe the architect was in the waiting room. I don't know what happened. He did message me and said he was listening in and was in Zoom, but maybe he got dropped or something happened. Nonetheless, that's fine. We could respond to the comments in writing. And just regarding the elevation of the site, I just want to point out, as per the survey, the site does drop in elevation from Richmond Avenue down to Ridgecrest. If that wasn't clear, so the architect is working with the natural topography, and it is sloping downward, so that is how he's able to get the parking in that open cellar. There isn't much earthwork being done in the rear yard to allow for that parking. Aside from that, we'll need a few months, 2 months, preferably, to relook into all of this and come up with a response.
Okay, and then you're also going to have to do parking studies and so on to be responsive to
Yes.
all of that. So I would say you need more time than that. But like cutting to the chase, the apparent use of the elevation drop, I think, is Frank M. You're the architect?
Yes.
Should we get him in? He's raising his hand now, so let's
Yes, please.
Okay. Could you state, Frank M, could you unmute yourself, please? That's either with your Zoom room unmute or *6. Okay, there you go.
How you doing?
All right, let me swear you in though, Mr. Martinelli.
It's Martinelli.
Martelli, sorry.
What is your last name, please? Just a second.
Frank Martorella.
Martorella, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I might have a little bit of a bad connection. I apologize.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony for this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay, please proceed. Turn off your YouTube.
Okay, did you want to add anything, Mr. Martorella? And I'm sorry if I misspelled your name.
No, you did a good job that time. At this time, I just wanted to introduce myself. I wanted to listen in. The one comment that I'd like to add, and I got cut off a little bit, I heard 2 or 3 of the previous comments from the community in which they were discussing accessibility of the site off of Ridgecrest Avenue. And I think you can plainly see that maybe we've acknowledged that there should not be access in and out of the site from Ridgecrest Avenue, which is why we did not provide a curb cut from the property to Ridgecrest Avenue. We did want to eliminate, or at least eliminate the traffic flow from the site in and out of Ridgecrest Avenue, which is why we have only one entrance and exit point from Richmond Avenue.
Okay, thank you. So what I was in the middle of saying before you joined in was I don't know whether you're additionally excavating the site in order to take advantage of the cellar access to the parking. If you are, when you excavate and you expose the excavation, therefore it makes the building look like it's 3 stories tall, which is atypical of the neighborhood, so that's not okay. And for 2, it changes the relationship between site grade and curb level or sidewalk level, which does not comply with the definition of open space in the zoning resolution, nor does it look like the community, which is one of our findings. It needs to be a yard that's at the same level as the sidewalk grade. So you need to, so when I said back to the drawing board, I really mean back to the drawing board. You have to speak with your client and make them, and I don't know if the client is listening in, make them understand this is far too aggressive of an ask, and it will come down very, very substantially. And that doesn't mean a little nibble here or a little nibble there, because this board doesn't have a lot of tolerance with nibbling its way through an application. If we see that, then on the next submission, we become sort of predisposed to being fed up. So you need to make major surgical changes to this project. Okay, so
okay. I just want to respond to at least one of those comments. It's because it seems obvious that there's a concern about the potential modification of the topography, the potential modification of the site. But I think that there may be a slight misunderstanding. We are utilizing much of the natural topography, natural grade, and the natural drop-off that exists currently on the property. So Richmond Avenue is at a higher elevation, Ridgecrest Avenue is at a lower elevation. We have no significant retaining walls. In fact, I don't think we have any retaining walls proposed on the site. We are utilizing the existing topography, albeit to our advantage, but we are using it and not modifying it at all. Well, not at all. Obviously, we're modifying it to smooth things out and soften some of the slopes, but we are not, we don't have any significant cut and fill. And if that's a concern, we can possibly provide some diagrams and some drawings and some illustrations to help clarify that for you.
So what's missing is, I don't know if there was a survey. If there wasn't, then provide one. What's also missing is a site section. So the site section all the way from Ridgecrest to Richmond, so that we can understand existing and proposed conditions. And then there should be sections also going laterally, so that we can understand if there is any, what the relationship is to the adjacent property that faces both Ridgecrest and Richmond. Because I was looking at the drawings, it looks like you had a pit for the cellar level parking, and then the neighbors are up a grade and they're looking down at your pit. So because I didn't have any other information and I can't see that on Google satellite.
Not a problem. It's obviously a fair comment, that I understand that, and I can absolutely provide all of these sections to help clarify that for you, for the board.
But I'd say at the same time, then how are you measuring height of building if grade is, if your average curb height is reflective of the site topography, then your limitation is 2 stories above average grade, right? So what it's looking like is 3 stories above average grade, and maybe you don't have a cellar.
Right. I utilized the base plane as defined by the New York City zoning resolution. I established the base plane and measured the building off of that, as dictated by the definition in ZR 12-10.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a few things. For one, you need to demonstrate that, like show us all of the elevations at the curb and on the site. So obviously a survey that shows us that, and then transport that onto your site plan, onto your architectural drawings. And then the next part of it is to keep in mind, again, the goal is to look like a house in the neighborhood, not to look like an institutional building in the neighborhood. So if yours is the only one that looks like a 3-story building, I don't care which plane you measured it off of, it doesn't fit within the character of the neighborhood. Okay? So,
Okay.
not only looking at the technical analysis, we're looking at character, and character is everything. And probably more people will show up at the next hearing very nervous about this project. So if you want it to get anywhere, you need to be very conscious of that, reduce the amount of parking, the size. Okay, good.
Great.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to say 3 months to submit, including a parking study, right?
Okay.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for calling in and for the members of the public for participating. Very helpful.
Thank you very much.
Item number 34, 2020-14 BZ, 34-10 12th Street, Queens.
Okay, Angela, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Yeah, talk about DOB stuff.
Hi. Yes. I looked into it a little bit more, and it looks like there was a pre-filing in 2012 with an eventual approval on 2016 of an Alt-1 application, which references the BSA special permit in the comments, and in the Schedule A. It appears to be self-certified. And then it failed on audit in 2017.
That's it.
There was also an Alt-2 application.
So failing on audit implies that, and when it failed on audit, it doesn't say that it failed because it doesn't look like the BSA approved plan?
Not in what I'm seeing.
Okay, but that would account for why the permits were.
The Alt-2, it looked like there was some reference to the work not matching the original permit, because the Alt-2 came after the Alt-1 application. I think the Alt-2 is for a parapet wall.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, well.
Okay, thank you. All right, Tony.
Okay, raise your right hand. Unmute Ms. Cohen.
Got it.
Okay, Ms. Arantia?
Yes.
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Okay, please proceed, Ms. Arantia.
Good afternoon. So I heard the board's comments, 3 categories that you raised here is concerns, ownership, the special permit, and violations. So to be clear about ownership, the applicant in this current application started leasing the rectangular factory in 1992. And it started leasing the triangle warehouse building in 1996. The applicant then purchased the rectangular warehouse, the triangle warehouse in 2015. And then earlier this year, the applicant had an opportunity to buy the factory, which gave the company more stability, gave the employees more stability especially during the pandemic. The 2 lots, the factory lot and the warehouse lot, have always been separate tax lots. They have always been separate zoning lots. There are 2 CVOs. There's a CVO for each building, and the uses are described as principal uses. So the warehouse is not accessory to the factory. We believe that for the uniqueness finding, the focus is solely on the triangle building.
No, sorry, it's not, right? That's the point. Now it's established, not only was I suspicious and then looking it up was right because the address of the LLC is the same on both sides, but now it's established that they're both held in common ownership, and there's 0 reason why you can't look at the entire site as one site, whether you treat it as one zoning lot or 2, who cares? And therefore get your additional needs from the other site. So, even if wait, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, not to mention that they're used in conjunction with one another. And so therefore that larger 2-lot site needs to be analyzed against the other sites for uniqueness, because you can't compare yourself to lots that are less than 5,000 square feet.
I understand what you're saying. I just wanted to clarify our position, and maybe it's not going to be ultimately persuasive to you, but I merely wanted to reiterate why the applicant believes that the 2 lots can be examined independently. And perhaps we can make a more convincing argument on that point. If it's not successful, we will examine the 2 lots together. I also want to note that there's no need for suspicion because these facts were disclosed in the submitted material.
Just a second. I don't want you to waste your time writing arguments that this board will not accept. The common ownership is enough. We must look at the lot in its entirety And then you need to make a uniqueness argument, if there is one, about the lot in its entirety. Please do not waste our time and yours pursuing what the board has never accepted, okay? Doesn't matter whether it's been treated as two zoning lots, it is held in common ownership at this very moment. And by the way, its entire history held it in common ownership, which is something we always look back, predecessor and title held in common ownership also. So, all right, let's move on to what you were saying.
Okay, so moving on to the comments about the special permit. There was a special permit applied for in 2012 when both sites were in former ownership. The then owner applied for a special permit to enlarge the Triangle building, and that was clearly for the benefit of the tenant, who is the current applicant. However, the applicant was not in control of the property at the time and is currently before the board seeking to correct the problems that exist in the building and obtain the proper approvals. The special permit doesn't provide the relief that the applicant needs, which was outlined in the submission. It has not been relied upon. It's never been used. It's been abandoned essentially. And that's why the prior lawful conditions that were detailed in the application show what the building looked like in 1961. So that's the lawful condition of the building.
Wait, slow down. You're saying that the permit that was issued in 2012, for one, was not under the control of this applicant, though they were the tenant for whom the special permit was issued, and very likely the builders of the actual addition or in some way had a work letter from the landlord or something. The idea of saying that a tenant who may arguably even have a net nest lease doesn't have control over the property. We need somebody to mute themselves. We have a strange background. I'm muting you, Jello. So I'm having trouble with the idea that this tenant wasn't in control of the property because they were the tenant and the special permit was obtained for their benefit. In fact, it's named on the resolution as the beneficiary of the special permit. And the idea that the addition was built not in compliance with the special permit, but essentially relying on the special permit in order to obtain, basically relying on the special permit, but not using it. You're saying it abandoned the special permit and then just built something illegal and now we should legalize it? I mean, both of those things are sort of messing with my head because illegal construction generally is a self-created hardship. So then you're done. And then the next one is building it not in compliance with the terms of a special permit is illegal construction. So I think you're done. I'm not understanding this argument that an illegal act is somehow, let's say, excusable, or you granted yourself your own variance.
Well, this variance application is a legalization application. In the history, there was an applicant who sought a special permit that was not relied upon. It was not used. However, there was an enlargement. It's a complicated history, but what I'm saying is that the applicant today is here to try and fix the situation by seeking the variance. What was built doesn't comply with the special permit, and it can't even because it's not, it doesn't follow the restrictions of the special permit. So the avenue for relief today is a legalization by a variance.
Or removal of the non-complying condition.
Right, because your chances of proving your site is unique are fairly slim because you have to analyze the enlarged site.
And analyze the partial second floor on the Triangle building?
No, I mean, when you're analyzing it in terms of uniqueness, it's not simply that triangle because it's used in conjunction with the rectangle. And so for that reason, you are in far more advantageous a position than the triangular lots that you're.
Right. Yes, I understand that based on today's hearing. What we had submitted was an analysis based on the triangle building. And then as I address your comments about the special permit, what I'm saying is that what we consider the prior legal condition is the 1961 one-story building. There was an unlawful enlargement. In the history of this building, there was an application for special permit, but it was not relied upon.
So that's the part I'm having trouble with. The prior legal condition was the 2012 special permit that permitted the addition of whatever many square feet that is that weren't completely used. The work was done, whether it was with a permit or without a permit, because we see that there was an alteration 1 issued in it's proof of it, right? In 2012, there was the approval of an alteration type 1 so there you go, that referenced the BSA special permit, and it was self-certified and audited 5 years later. So you cannot tell me that there wasn't reliance on the BSA special permit. It says right there in biz, and we just haven't had a chance to completely research that, right? So that's the step 1. So there was reliance on the special permit. So, you know, we need to do deeper research into the DOB.
Yeah, there's an application. It's an Alt 1 from 2016, but it was never permitted. So we're acknowledging that work occurred at the building, created the partial second story. It was done without a permit, and it was not done in reliance on the special permit.
If in 2012 they had an approval of an Alt 1, self-certified, and they went ahead and began the work pursuant to the Alt 1 that was self-certified, and then for whatever reason they didn't pull a permit, they're still relying on it. And I think that we've seen that kind of thing. For instance, zoning lot mergers. DOB views a zoning lot merger essentially vested when there's an application filed that relies on the zoning, the TDRs. This was an application filed relying on the BSA special permit, but for whatever reason, they didn't get well, for obvious reasons, they didn't get a permit because it probably didn't look exactly like what was approved by BSA. I'm not buying this, that they didn't rely on a special permit. And I'm not buying that the last legal condition was the legally approved addition. And then they built an illegal.
But the prior legal condition has to be a condition that was performed according to permit and that got a C of O, which is what the 1961 building is. There's nothing lawful about an approved application from 2012. That doesn't make it the lawful condition. There was no perfecting of what the special permit was. In the case where you have a merger that relies on DOB permits, it has to be a lawful permit to effectuate the merger. It can't just be any unlawful permit. So that's why I'm saying the special permit was not acted upon, because it was never properly completed.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Chair, it's Scarlett. I'm sorry, I have a question for Mr. Aranti. Hi, hello. Have you looked at the applicability of the special permit on the 2 sites now? Because I think you're discussing it in the 2012 when you were looking at just the triangular site. But would it be applicable on the 2 sites? And would that perhaps cure any, if it were applicable, kind of the situation?
So I just want to jump in. The terms of 7353 is you can't apply for it twice. You applied for it and got it once. So I don't think, and it's non-complying. I don't think you could apply for it on that zoning lot, but I think you could apply for it on the rectangle, which is what I said at the beginning during the review session, the only route, as far as I'm concerned, is a 7353 on the rectangle, and you treat them as, and in part because the terms of that special permit apply to a building. So it doesn't matter whether it's on the same zoning lot or another zoning lot. It's building by building. And as far as I understand, this is still treated as a separate buildings.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
So I'd recommend that, for one, you're probably not going to be able to make the findings, and I'm not sympathetic to this illegal work. And I think those were the comments from a number of the commissioners. I think that you should instead look at the 7353 on the larger building and see what it gets you. And, you know, this idea of it not being adjacent to the right functions and so on, I agree with Commissioner Sheta. Those are design issues. A staircase goes up, and then from the staircase, you go over, and you can put dunnage beam. You can do things where you're not interfering even maybe at all, lightweight construction or something like that. These are warehouses. I'm guessing there's structure. I don't know, but anyway. So
We'll take a look at this 7353. Lastly, I wanted to address on this Dob violations. Those violations can only be cleared after we have legalization. So that's
so I'm just cutting to the chase. You're not going to be able to legalize something that was illegally built, because that's the self-created hardship. You had a special permit which you chose to ignore, and you're not going to make a uniqueness finding because you could have built it compliant with the special permit. So my recommendation is understand that they were bad actors. They went ahead and built something they know they weren't allowed to build. They didn't even get permits for it. They were like sort of sneaking around and knew that they wouldn't get permits for it. And the way to cure it is to build according to the approvals. Commissioner Sheta has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. When looking at the existing conditions and comparing them to the previously approved plans, the PDF is page 7. I'm looking at drawing, I don't know, P-004. It's a cross section in the building, and it's showing a floor height of, I believe, 16 feet, if I do read it right. And if I compare it with the second floor, yes, it appears to be 16 feet. But if you look at the existing conditions and you look at the corresponding section, it sounds like the floor height is changing. The part that got built over is about 9.5 feet is the first floor height. And then the other portion that was left without building, probably it's about 13.5. So my question is, during the addition that took place between 2013 and 2014, was there any changes to the first floor framing? Did you remove the roof and reinstall it? Was that happened?
I'll have to check with the architect about whether the roof was removed.
Because the reason I'm talking about this, I did read through the statement of facts that one of the reasons for not being able to build what the board approved actually was the desire of the applicant to make it like an open floor concept. They were not willing to put columns inside the first floor because of the difficulty of the construction. I believe if they changed the entire framing, it could have been much easier to put whatever columns and comply with the board approved plans.
It looks like they treated it like a mezzanine. They just ran, according to the existing drawing, they just ran beams and lolly columns. Very light.
Maybe that's what they did, but when you add up the, if you look at the 2 floors, 9 plus, that's 17. It doesn't add up. If you add up the 9.5 plus the 8.5, this is 17 plus the, the floor thickness. This is more than the 16 that's in the board approved plans. So I'm not sure if they just added a mezzanine. I can't tell.
Hmm. Right, because they chose not to go the height that was granted previously. Right, okay.
Apparently, they removed the framing for the first floor, and then they rebuilt it at 9.5 feet, and then they added the second floor on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
If the drawings are accurate, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing, in one of the pictures that they submitted, I noticed that there was like a truss, metal truss, like on the cross section, and I did see it in the photos. Was that mentioned anywhere in the drawings that were submitted to the BSA previously? I haven't seen it.
What is it in the photographs? There's a truss.
It's a metal truss. If you look at, even if you look at the Google view,
yeah,
you're gonna see like a metal truss.
The overhead hang on the sidewalk.
Exactly. Yes, and they use the sidewalk for storage. I don't know how is that.
Okay, so yeah, so there's this big awning on the sidewalk. I don't know if it's code compliant. Are those solar collectors, or is it just an awning?
It's an awning.
It's one of those plastic see-through kind of awnings.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are supported with they are supported by a metal truss.
Yes.
And if you go like down the street, you're gonna see in Google View, you're gonna see some sort of like a storage on the sidewalk. I'm not sure if this is legal. Even in one of the photos, actually, yeah. If you go on the street view, right past that container that's parked in front of the store, and you look right past to that container, you're gonna see like a portion that's like closed with like a metal picket fence. It's part of the sidewalk actually that's been added, and it's roofed. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you can see it, or should I? You want me to share my screen?
No, it's okay. So what I want to say is whatever there is that's protruding onto the sidewalk has to be legal. So don't know if it's legal. That's all. Right? I need to get into more detail than that, I don't think. Right? But that's what you're talking about. And obviously you're not supposed to store materials on the sidewalk. Okay. Okay. So I think your best route is a special permit. And I don't know what to say about legalizing what was done illegally. That's like what Commissioner Sheta, I think, said. We grant something, then the recipient of the grant ignores it and does what they want under color of BSA approval, basically. It's really a bad message. So, okay. So let's go to public testimony unless commissioners want to add anything more. Or, okay. So if there's anyone who would like to speak on this application, Tony, you want to read the application numbers? So this is, I believe it's 34, hold on, 34-10 12th Street in Queens, application number 20.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry, I was muted.
2020-14 BC, 34-10 12th Street, Queens. If you would like to speak on this application, please call in at 646-558-8656 and passcode 6233-6910. And I think there's only one attendee in the waiting room. If I'm not sure if that person's here to listen to this application or just didn't yet. And if you would like to speak on this, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Okay, so Ms. Arantia, how much time do you need to respond?
Can we have 4 weeks, please?
Yeah, I'm going to give you more because I think you need more. Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll let you know when it's assigned for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we finished with the public?
Yes, I don't see anybody with hands up.
Okay, so this concludes the public hearing for December 1st, 2020, 2 p.m. session.
Thank you, everyone.